Think about the simple act of drawing a line in the sand.
Right.
Like, as kids, it's just a game,
Yeah.
You drag a stick across the beach, and magically you've created an inside and an outside.
Yeah, exactly. It feels organized.
It does. It gives you this sense of control over a vast, messy beach.
Yeah.
But then you grow up, and you realize, we never actually put that stick down.
Oh, wow.
We've spent our entire lives drawing these invisible, really rigid lines across our reality, like declaring this side is success, that side is failure, or this is beautiful, that is ugly. So today, we are taking a fascinating 20-paragraph text that completely decodes Chapter 2 of Lao Tzu's ancient masterpiece, the Tao Te Ching. And we've designed this deep dive specifically for you.
Yeah, for anyone listening who feels kind of stuck.
Exactly. For someone looking to extract the ancient secrets of duality and wu-wei to really navigate modern life with this supreme, unshakable balance.
And, the stakes here are incredibly high. And they affect you every single day. This isn't just ancient poetry meant to be read in a quiet room.
Right. It's not a museum piece.
Exactly. It is a highly practical, surprisingly aggressive manual for understanding the fundamental laws of nature and, well, managing the chaos of our own minds. If you've ever felt completely exhausted by the constant pressure to achieve or to curate a specific image
Or to just avoid failure at all costs.
Yes. If you feel that, this text argues that your suffering isn't due to a lack of effort. You are suffering because you are trapped in a fundamentally flawed, manufactured view of reality.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack this, because we need to look at the very first concept Lao Tzu presents here. And it directly attacks how we perceive the world.
It really does.
It's about the trap of our own judgments. The source text identifies the absolute root of human suffering as our mind's constant obsessive need to compare and categorize. And it starts with an argument that almost feels backward to a modern listener. The text states that the exact moment the human mind defines something as beautiful, it instantly and unconsciously creates the concept of ugly.
Right. And I mean, if we look at the psychological mechanism behind that ancient observation, it actually makes perfect biological sense.
Really?
Yeah. The human brain consumes a massive amount of energy, roughly 20% of our body's total intake.
Oh, wow.
So it relies heavily on efficiency to survive.
Yeah.
Categorizing things, labeling them rapidly as safe or dangerous, good or bad, that reduces cognitive load.
Like you don't have to analyze a tiger every time you see one.
Exactly. We just label it danger and run.
Yeah.
But Lao Tzu is pointing out the hidden, devastating cost of applying that biological efficiency to our social and internal lives. What's fascinating here is that if you never define beautiful with a rigid, exclusive set of criteria, ugly doesn't actually exist in the world.
Wait, really?
Yeah. It's all just a variation of forms in nature. But the second your brain isolates one specific form and elevates it as the absolute objective standard of beauty, everything outside that narrow box is instantly banished to the category of ugly.
So you've basically invented a flaw where none existed before.
Exactly.
And the text takes this right into the realm of morality.
Yeah.
Which gets uncomfortable very quickly.
It does.
Because it argues that when we draw a line to define this is good, we automatically turn anything outside that line into evil. But out in nature, these hard black and white moral lines are entirely absent.
Yeah.
Like a hurricane isn't evil for knocking down a tree.
Yeah.
It's just atmospheric pressure equalizing.
A wolf isn't evil for hunting. It's just participating in the food web.
Yeah. But wait, so does simply admiring a beautiful sunset curse us to see ugliness elsewhere? Are we building our own traps just by having preferences? Because, I mean, that sounds like we're supposed to become completely emotionless robots.
Well, no, and the source text clarifies this distinction beautifully.
Okay.
The sunset itself isn't the problem. The sunset is just light reflecting off the atmosphere. The problem arises when we invent a rigid standard and fuse it to our ego.
What do you mean by that?
The text argues for true objectivity, seeing the world exactly as it is without the heavy bias of our personal desires and expectations. You can appreciate the warmth of the sunset without your ego declaring, this is the only acceptable weather and rain is a personal attack on my weekend.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, objectivity stops the frantic running because you stop turning mere personal preferences into absolute laws of the universe.
You experience the world without demanding it conform to your categories.
Exactly, because by projecting human moral categories onto a neutral universe, we create what the text calls the world of opposites, and this world is an absolute trap.
Right.
The moment you accept these imaginary lines as objective truth, your life becomes an exhausting, frantic marathon. You spend your entire existence running as fast as you can toward the side society praises, the beautiful, the good, the wealthy, and running terrified away from the side it condemns.
So you're just constantly defending a border that your own mind invented, living in perpetual anxiety that you might slip over the line.
Exactly that.
Okay, I see the trap. But if things aren't strictly good or bad, what are they? If we strip away these human labels and stop categorizing every little thing, what are we actually left looking at?
Well, the source text argues that traits are not permanent, isolated things at all. They are merely relationships. It's a cosmic dance of relativity.
A cosmic dance, I like that.
Yeah. The text illustrates this by exploring concepts we usually treat as fixed realities, like time and space. We treat before and after, or long and short, as if they are tangible items you can hold in your hand.
Right.
But time and space are just human constructs used to measure reality, not reality itself. A stick isn't inherently short.
Because the wood doesn't contain a property called shortness.
Exactly. You only perceive it as short when a longer stick is placed right next to it. The trait is just the relationship between the two objects.
That makes a lot of sense.
Furthermore, the text points out that existence, or being, literally needs empty space, non-being, to occur. You cannot build a chair inside a room that is packed completely solid with concrete.
The empty space is what allows the chair to exist. They are locked in a continuous relationship.
Press. And difficulty works the exact same way. The text points out that difficult and easy support each other. Difficulty isn't a permanent state of the world. It's a perspective that gives ease its entire meaning.
Oh, yeah. Like, think about the last time you learned a complex physical skill, like driving a car with a manual transmission.
Oh, man.
Right. The sheer struggle of trying to manage the clutch, the gas pedal, the gear shift, the mirrors all at once, that struggle is precisely what makes the eventual mindless highway cruising feel so effortless.
Yeah, you only know what easy feels like because you have the learned contrast of the difficult stored in your brain.
Exactly.
And this interconnectedness becomes incredibly profound when the text holds a mirror up to our modern social structures. It states, high and low depend on each other. We live in a society deeply obsessed with upward mobility. We worship the peak and actively despise the base.
So it's like a skyscraper.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, everyone wants the penthouse view. Everyone in society is fighting for that top floor. But the penthouse literally cannot exist in thin air without the thousands of tons of ugly concrete foundation buried in the dirt. They are locked together.
Yes, beautifully put. Let's apply that practically to how we view careers and social status. We tend to forget that the peak is entirely dependent on the base. When you realize the penthouse and the foundation are one unified system, you stop despising the low or the difficult foundational work in your own life.
Right.
You stop judging the base because you finally understand it is structurally required for the high to even exist. The judgment dissolves entirely when you see the whole picture.
I hear that. But let's be totally real for a second. Society absolutely values the penthouse more. We don't pay corporate CEOs the same as the people pouring the concrete or sweeping the floors. So is Lao Tzu just being incredibly idealistic here, pretending these things are socially equal?
Well, no. The text isn't claiming that human society pays them equally. It's revealing that nature values them equally because the system cannot function if either is removed. Society's pay scale is just another invented line in the sand.
Ah, right.
If you tie your self-worth to society's manufactured hierarchy, you will always be anxious about losing your spot. You will live in fear of slipping from high to low. But if you align your mindset with nature's reality, that the entire system is interdependent, you insulate yourself from that anxiety.
Because you recognize that playing a foundational role is just as structurally vital as sitting at the peak.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we stop fighting these opposites because we realize they fundamentally rely on each other, how do we actually operate in the real world? Like if we stop calling a leaking roof bad, how do we find the motivation to fix it?
Right, the practical application.
Yeah. And this brings us to the path of the knower, the concept of Wu Wei. Now, for anyone listening who studies Eastern philosophy, you likely already know the basic translation of Wu Wei as effortless action or doing without doing. But the text takes us way past those basic definitions. It's not just about doing things easily or being relaxed. It's about acting in a way that aligns perfectly with the mechanical rhythm of reality. stripping the human ego out of the equation entirely.
Yeah, and to truly grasp the mechanism of Wu Wei, let's move past the ancient analogies of swimming with a river current and look at something highly modern, like regenerative braking in an electric car.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison.
You think about it. When you drive an EV down a steep, winding mountain hill, you don't violently slam on the traditional friction brakes to fight the momentum of gravity.
Right, doing that burns up the brake pads.
Exactly. It generates massive amounts of wasteful heat and destroys your vehicle. That is how the ego operates, using sheer force and friction to fight the reality of the downhill slope. Instead, with Wu Wei, you engage regenerative braking. You use the hill's natural momentum to spin the motor backward, which actually captures that energy and recharges your battery.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. Slamming the brakes is like throwing a tantrum when things don't go your way.
Yes.
You're creating massive internal friction, fighting against the undeniable reality of the situation, and burning yourself out in the process.
Exactly. Wu Wei is the regenerative braking. You are still taking highly effective action. You are carefully controlling the speed of the car, navigating the turns, and ensuring a safe descent. But you are utilizing the momentum of what the universe presents rather than exhausting yourself fighting the fact that a hill exists. You are turning the obstacle into your power source.
And the source applies this to something as subtle as leadership, calling it teaching without speaking. The argument is that being a living, breathing example of quality is infinitely more powerful than cooking up manipulative words to control your team.
Right. You don't have to force a lecture down someone's throat. Just embody the standard of excellence.
But wait, the text also mentions letting whatever happens happen. So what does this all mean? If I just let whatever happens happen, aren't I just being passive? Is Lao Tzu telling me to just be a pushover and let life steamroll me?
No, absolutely not. Many people misread this as a license for complete passivity or nihilism, but it is actually the ultimate code for managing ego attachment.
Okay.
The text explains that accepting both positive and negative states, letting them arise and fade naturally drastically reduces our ego's attachment to them. And here is the core psychological mechanism at play. That ego attachment is the literal root cause of the intense grief we feel when we face a loss.
Break that down for me. How exactly does ego attachment physically create the sensation of grief or devastation?
So, the ego functions like an emotional anchor. When you attach your core identity to a temporary state, let's say you define yourself entirely as the top salesperson or the perfect parent, your brain literally treats that label as a piece of your actual survival.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, your identity merges with the circumstance. When that temporary state naturally shifts or ends, as all things eventually do, your brain doesn't just process it as a change in your daily routine, it processes the loss as a literal threat to your existence.
You feel profound grief because you feel like a piece of you is dying.
Exactly. By practicing Wu Wei and letting things happen naturally, you start anchoring your core identity to the shifting tides of external events.
So fixing the leaking roof,
Yeah.
you still patch the hole, right? Because Wu Wei doesn't mean sitting on the couch and letting your living room flood just to prove you aren't attached.
Of course you patch the hole. Fixing a leak to protect your shelter is the natural, necessary action, but you don't stand in the living room screaming at the rain, cursing the sky, and tying your emotional stability to the fact that a storm happened.
The action still occurs, but the internal friction is gone.
Right. You act purely in response to what is needed in the physical world, not in response to what your ego aggressively demands reality should be.
Human nature is stubborn, though. When we operate smoothly, when we execute that flawless regenerative braking and actually achieve something great, we desperately want to claim the trophy.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if I fix the roof perfectly, I want to stand up there, take a selfie, and declare myself the ultimate master carpenter. We are desperate to own our wins.
And that instinct brings us to the ultimate management technique presented in the text, creating without possessing. Lao Tzu advises us to give birth and nourish, but do not possess. It is described as the highest form of supreme compassion. You pour your energy into creating wonderful things for the world, you nourish projects and relationships, but you refuse to let your ego tie a leash to the result and claim ownership. You don't say, look at what I did, validate me.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because think about the immense mental health toll this takes on us today. We live in a society completely obsessed with curating and hoarding our past victories.
Oh, the resume culture.
Yes. Every instinct we have today tells us to update our resumes, hoard our wins, and soak in the applause.
Yeah.
We tie our entire identity to our job titles. But the source text says, Acting without expecting results is the only way to stay sane.
Right. You dedicate yourself entirely to the work that needs to be done right now without hooking your heart onto a future promotion or a round of applause that hasn't even happened yet.
But Lao Tzu says that holding on to the win actually poisons your next move. The text pushes this even further with the deepest psychological tool in the entire chapter. When the work is done, forget it.
Yes. It argues that clinging to past successes actually halts your personal development entirely.
Wait, if holding on to a past win stops my development, it's almost like hoarding old trophies takes up the physical shelf space in your brain needed for new ones.
That is exactly the mechanism at play.
You literally have no room to grow, innovate, or learn because you are too busy dusting your old awards and demanding people look at them.
Exactly. Forgetting past success empties the mind. It clears the mental shelf space, allowing you to approach your next endeavor with pure, unburdened beginner's energy.
Wow.
And the paradox is that this is exactly why truly great work endures through the centuries, because it was built purely for the sake of the work itself, uncorrupted by the desperate need to serve temporary greed or feed the creator's ego.
It completely shields you from the emotional roller coaster. Think about the last time you opened a performance review or checked the likes on a post.
Right.
If you got a stellar rating, your ego inflated.
Yeah,
You felt invincible. But if you got a poor rating, you crashed and burned. The text argues that by hoarding the victory and identifying with the praise, you are willingly strapping yourself into that roller coaster.
Yeah.
You are handing the remote control to your emotions over to the outside world.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, by not clinging to the outcome, you protect yourself from those violent extremes. You don't artificially inflate when you receive praise, and therefore you don't instantly deflate when you face criticism. You realize that praise and blame are just those bouncing opposites we talked about earlier, the highs and the low, and neither defines your actual inherent worth. You remain securely centered in the action itself.
So to synthesize everything we've been unpacking from this decoding of the Tao Te Ching,
Yeah.
the ultimate goal here is mind training. It's about training your brain to rise above the opposites, to find an unshakable peace that isn't tossed around by the world's currents.
Right.
It's realizing that the lines we draw are imaginary and the friction we feel is entirely self-imposed by our own egos.
And the source text leaves us with these truly beautiful closing definitions that completely reframe our entire discussion. It suggests that true beauty isn't a specific visual form. It is simply balance.
Balance, I love that.
True goodness isn't following a rigid set of moral laws. It is just being natural and operating without force. And true success, the ultimate measure of a life well lived, is fulfilling your duty perfectly and then gracefully fading away.
Fulfilling your duty and gracefully fading away, it just strips the anxiety right out of the room.
It really does.
For you listening, this ancient wisdom is a highly practical tool to break free from the exhausting chains of constant comparison. It's permission to stop running the frantic marathon of defending the imaginary borders your mind created.
Yeah, allowing you to live simply, powerfully, and totally free from society's imaginary boundaries. It is the ultimate freedom to engage with the world fully without being bound by it.
Right.
You do the necessary work, you enjoy the warmth of the sunset, you fix the leaking roof, but you never let those temporary states dictate your inner peace. You flow with the reality of the universe rather than fighting it.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering question. Think about everything we just discussed. The text tells us that true success is fulfilling your duty and then gracefully fading away, leaving the work behind. So ask yourself, what is one achievement or even one failure in your life right now that you are holding on to so tightly that is actually preventing you from starting your next great chapter with a pure, empty mind?